Hey guys, so I just made one other video where I wanted to speak about my feeling that I get when I'm away from Featherstail and my enormous family there, of not feeling like I have enough places to put my love. It feels a very strange thing. But during that video, I mentioned that inside all of us is the same ability to love. Everybody has the same ability to love. But I also said everybody has the same ability to cast a shadow. Now, this is one of the problems we face with the world at present. We have people who we go to school with, and maybe some of you who are listening to me now, who have either served in the army or in the army, navy, air force. One of my close childhood friends is in the navy. And we have these leaders who take us to war and they bomb places. And you might have a perfectly loving human being in that area, but somewhere inside them, if you can imagine a seed, there's a seed that can grow into the shadow that we can express in life. And by the shadow, I'm kind of using in my mind how Carl Jung described it, but let's call it the place where, if you're, say, in the West and you understand the term Satan or evil or darkness, the place where that evil can come through you, anger and revenge and all of these negative things. And inside every human mind there is a seed. But most humans, they manage to keep this seed completely locked away. And it's sheltered, it's shaded, so sunlight can never get to it, water can never get to it, and it can never grow. But when we go to war, and we bomb countries, and you kill people's sons, and daughters, and husbands, and wives, and mothers, and fathers, and cousins, and aunts, and uncles, and friends, you take away that shade and you start pouring water onto that seed inside our consciousness, inside our minds. And some will still cover up and shade it because they develop a good heart and say, no, I won't do this. But others, the pain becomes so unbearable that they allow it. They allow the sun through, they allow the water, and that seed that can manifest itself as what we see as evil begins to grow. And the want for revenge and the hatred, and these things take a grip. And they exist in all of us. I've been hurt in my life, but I've hurt people in my life as well. I'm not proud of it. But what I find is when we come to terms with the fact that inside our human consciousness and we as beings, that the possibility for both ends of the spectrum do exist, then we find a lot of internal peace with ourselves. Because when you meet others who are doing something wrong, you can develop a state of empathy for them. Instead of focusing on, sometimes you must, don't get me wrong, if people are doing wrong, they must be checked and corrected in their behaviours. But sometimes people are doing wrong and we focus on it and we let it churn our emotions up. And we get angry at them and we're disappointed in them. And we begin perhaps even to edge towards letting some sunlight on our own seed that lets us start to hate them. And this is not how it should be. For if we accept that within all of us these things exist, and within all of us something could trigger it, and when you meet people you don't know what's being triggered because of the society we live in, because we're not putting love first, because we live in a society where we don't put the well-being of one another at the highest of priorities, then every person you meet, something terrible might have happened to clear away the shade on that seed of inside them and to start dousing it with water and start allowing those negative traits to grow within them. And when you accept that that exists in all humans, then when you meet people like that, you can come into the relationship with some empathy and say, well, I don't know what's happened to them. I don't know what's broken in them. I don't know what needs healing in them. But I do know that I'd like it if something had happened to I, and I hadn't managed to get control, and it took a hold of me, that somebody would approach me with love and try to get through to me, to assist me to heal from that. But too often, I think in society, we're very quick to judge someone immediately. And we judge them for their behaviours and what they've done. They've wronged me, they've done this. And of course, this is just me echoing a very common teaching of one of the greatest moral teachings you can find in the words of Jesus, but forgiveness. And when you come into all situations with forgiveness, then we can begin to heal one another much more easily. But to come into everything with forgiveness, you really do need to accept that both sides of the coin exist inside you. We don't know how we'd react if our loved ones were killed by a foreign nation. Would we take up arms and want revenge? You would hope and pray that as a person of God and love that you would not, but you can't guarantee it. And so it's important, I find, to approach everybody in life with forgiveness, that you accept both sides of your nature. And then when you see both sides of that nature that can exist in all of us, doesn't necessarily always express itself in all of us, but can. When you see it expressing in others, not only do you praise and love those who express the good stuff, but you reach to those who are expressing the bad stuff with a level of empathy in the hope that perhaps you can get through and stimulate some healing, or to try and return them back to the light, where they shade and dry out the area where the seeds of hatred and jealousy and negativity and all of these problems that humans have is growing from. So, I guess in short, I'm saying if you want to approach the world with forgiveness at the forefront, which means that you are not affected, not allowing your emotions to churn when someone wrongs you, and you can approach them with forgiveness in the hope that you can heal them, to teach them not to do whatever it is they did that caused your emotions to churn to others, then one of the only ways I find you can do that is when you come to an acceptance of whatever they're expressing back to you is something that exists, and you have the potential and the possibility of expressing in this world as well. It's just thankfully you haven't yet had the triggers or the events happen to you, harm you or wound you that have made you express that thing yet. And when we all see that, I think we can have a much more loving world. I see it in Tanzania. We work with some very impossible characters sometimes, children and adults alike. And it takes a lot of patience and forgiveness. And I just go into these relationships with that at the forefront, that what they're expressing now, by the grace of God, thank you, it hasn't happened to I, but something could have tilted me to express this to people as well. But thankfully, I have not been subjected to maybe it's the abuse or the trauma that they've been subjected to, so I don't express it. But I know that it exists in me. And I know that if when I was an undeveloped younger man and these things had happened, as many of you know, I tried to harm myself once, then things can happen that can trigger behaviours that are not understandable. And I guess I'm just saying to always keep that in your awareness, that's all. That inside you is the seeds that can grow, sadly, hatred, and the seeds that can grow love. Just some of us are very lucky. Just some of us are very lucky that we haven't had the traumatic events happen to us. And the more loving we are, the less chance we have of other people who have been traumatized and exposed those seeds of hate and so on and so forth, and anger to manifest, and not going to expose them in other people. So we really need to try and keep the balance to, as the esoterics would say, the right hand of God, the right hemisphered behaviour of the human vehicle. Love. And having people in power who wish to bomb countries is only going to trigger people to express hate. Having people in our society who don't understand that these wars are not just and that they're not protecting anybody except the wealth and the interests of our leaders and these cartel families is imperative. Otherwise, they are the ones who go and breed the hate. And whilst they're doing it, they're killing people, all doing themselves. All the while believing they're doing it for something honourable. Most of the time, as we now know, I think most people know, they are actually just doing it to expand upon the Anglo-Dutch military banking complex empire. So, solution? Don't join the armed forces. You could say, but we need them because of these threats. If you keep bombing innocent children and men and women, then you're going to expose the seeds of hate inside them. So yes, you are. But is there a point we can come to of peace? I have to live my life believing there is. God bless. Bye.
If we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong. I'll be your friend, and I'll help you